نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شان حبيبه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد صلاة تنجينا بها من جميع الأهوال والآفات وتقضي لنا بها جميع الحاجات وتطهرنا بها من جميع السيئات وترفعنا بها عندك على الدرجات وتبلغنا بها أقصى الغايات من جميع الخيرات في الحياة وبعد الممات إنك على كل شيء قدير. صلاة وسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. Today is the 9th of Rabiul Awwal, and so there are many scholars who say that this is also the date of the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we've talked about before, there's a difference of opinion on the date. Some say the 8th, some say the 9th, some the 12th, some say later the 19th or the 21st. But of course, not knowing the exact date does not diminish the significance of a day. As we know from the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر. That Laylatul Qadr is greater than 1,000 months. But when you ask anybody what is the date of Laylatul Qadr, they can't tell you. They can tell you, okay, it's more than likely Ramadan, it's more than likely the last 10 days, it's more than likely the odd nights of the last 10 days, but they can't tell you the exact date. So again, not knowing the exact date does not diminish its significance. And as far as the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know that it was Monday, because in the hadith in Sahih Muslim, when he's asked, why he fasted on Monday, specifically on Monday, he said that it's the day that I was born and the day that the first revelation came to me. So again, mentioning the significance of the day of his birth. When we look at the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions the birth of various prophets. And not just the birth, but the events surrounding the birth, which is what the Mawlud is. The Mawlud in reality is an expression of gratitude for the favor of Allah, which is also the command of Allah, is that when He gives us a favor, then we show gratitude for it. Because being indifferent or ungrateful for something is also kufr. So the greatest ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He sent His Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as we've said before, this is something very unusual. People give you their money, they give you their clothes, they give you this, they give you that. No one gives you their beloved. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent His beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam to us to guide us. Whereas in reality, He Himself is the guidance. He is the one who guides to Sirat al-Mustaqim, and yet He Himself in reality is Sirat al-Mustaqim. So, because there are many people who try to say, this was the same day that He passed. And it is true that He was born on Monday and He passed on Monday. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also explains this to us in the Quran as well. when he talks about Yahya alayhi salam, وَسَلَامٌ عَلَيْهِ يَوْمَ وُلِدَ وَيَوْمَ يَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ يُبْعَثُ حَيًّا. That salam be upon him the day that he was born, the day that he will pass, and the day that he will be raised up again. And Isa alayhi salam for himself, وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيَّ يَوْمَ وُلِدْتُ وَيَوْمَ أَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ أُبْعَثُ حَيًّا. That peace be upon me, salam be upon me the day that I was born, the day that I pass, and the day that I will be raised up again. For the prophets, every day is salam. Every day is peace. And when we talk about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we're not just talking about any prophet. We are talking about Sayyidul Anbiya, the master and the leader of the prophets. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that I am, that I have been made the leader of the prophets, but there is no fakhr, there is no fakhr in this for me. Fakhr normally gets translated as pride. And some people, they take this narration and say, oh, see, you shouldn't be proud of anything. You should be proud of whatever maqam Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed you at. Because this is also a show of gratitude. There is a difference in pride and arrogance. Here, and so you should be proud. So Rasulullah is telling us that even this position is below his actual maqam. There's no pride in him for being the master of the prophets. There's pride in the prophets for having a master like him. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's interesting. Jummah today, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told us this is Eid al-Mu'mineen. This is Eid of the believers, for the believers. Every Jummah. But why is Jummah a Jummah? What is the distinction between this day and any other day? And we know from the hadith in Sahih Bukhari that this is that day. وَنُفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says to the angels, when I blow my soul into him, to Adam alayhi salam, then you prostrate to him. What day was that? Jummah. It is Friday. So this is the birth, because of course, the creation of Adam alayhi salam is not like our creation. He was not created the way we are created. But his soul being blown into him is his birth. And because of that, Jummah, the Friday, becomes distinguished above all other days. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the leader and the master of Adam alayhi salam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is khayra khalqillah, the greatest creation of Allah. And everything other than Allah is his creation. There's a term that's actually used for the miracles that a prophet performs before the declaration of prophethood. Irhas. And we see this with various prophets, even mentioned in the Quran. And we see this with Musa alayhi salam. Various things that happened that should not have happened. Impossibilities that happened, all surrounding his birth. We see the declaration that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes at the birth of Musa alayhi salam. Even Pharaoh and his court are all on high alert. Initially Pharaoh had ordered, when he had heard that someone from Bani Israel will overthrow his kingdom, so he had ordered that all of the male children should be slaughtered. Any male child that's born to be slaughtered. And then he realized that, well, if we kill them all, then who's going to work for us? You have to have cheap labor. So who's going to work for us? So then he changed the rule to where, okay, 1 year we will kill them and the next year we will not. So Harun al-Islam was born the year that they were not to be killed. Musa al-Islam, of course, is born the year that they're supposed to be killed. And this wasn't simply a decree of the king that, oh, I'm decreeing that all the male children will be killed. He had a whole system in place to enforce this. It's like when China, when they had that one-child policy, that department employed 1 million people to enforce the rule. Keep a check on who's doing what. Pharaoh, same thing. He had a whole system in place to make sure who's expecting, when are they expecting, when do we need to go check on them, the whole process. Of course, Musa al-Islam is born, and when the people come to check on him, the first woman that came to check, when she saw Musa al-Islam, she saw his beauty. And this is one of the characteristics of all the prophets. They're very attractive, very beautiful. Of course, every child is beautiful to his mother. And every child looks cute to most everybody else, at least most children. But the distinction of the prophets is very different. So when she sees him, she says, how can we kill this beautiful child? So she goes back and she tells them, nothing there. Don't worry about it. But sometimes, someone tells you something and you're not satisfied, so whoever was in charge wasn't satisfied. And especially when you kind of sense, somebody telling you something in a certain manner. Yeah. So now they send someone else to go check. And this time the mother of Musa al-Islam places him in the oven. Because they're going to check everywhere. No one's going to look for a baby in the oven. Especially when the oven is hot. Like with Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the fire to be cool on Ibrahim. Not just cool, baradan wa salaman ala Ibrahim. Cool and a source of peace. Salam, again, salam on Ibrahim. So they come, they look, they can't find any baby, so they leave. And this is when the command comes to place him in the box. And according to some scholars, that box Jibreel alayhi salam brought from paradise. According to most scholars, that box will become the Ark of the Covenant. That is that Tabut al-Sakina, in which other relics will be placed. So he places him in the box, puts him in the river, and sends him on the way. But she tells his sister, her daughter, to go and follow him, keep an eye on him. And this is how, when he ends up, and I won't go into the details of the story, but he ends up in the castle. And the wife of Pharaoh says, beautiful child, let's raise him. Pharaoh knows this isn't just any beautiful child. So now he puts the test. You know, of course, the wife is saying, no, we got to keep him. You know, like they're saying here, happy wife, happy life. Same thing back then. She hadn't disobeyed him to the extent that he will punish her like he does later on. She hasn't denied his claim of being God. She's just attracted to this beautiful child, like any mother would be, or actually more than any normal mother would be, because again, this is not just any child. So Fir'aun, he says, fine, we'll test him, because if he's in, you know, and he places before him a diamond and a burning coal, and he says if he goes for the coal, then we will leave him, but if he goes for the diamond, then he's that child who's going to overthrow my kingdom. Of course, Musa al-Islam starts to reach for the diamond, and Jibreel al-Islam grabs his hand and puts it on the coal and then places it in his mouth. This is why later Musa al-Islam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands him to go and give da'wah to Fir'aun, he says, Ya Allah, they will make fun of my speech, so send my brother with me. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends Harun alayhi salam. But again, all of these things, even his survival should not have happened. And yet he does. Many other things. There were many signs. Otherwise, how did Pharaoh know that this child is going to be born? How did he know that this is that child? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends out announcements. You know, when he sends his messengers, he also sends announcements that they have come. The announcements for all the other messengers and the prophets were local because they were local prophets. The announcements for Rasulullah were not just global but universal, because he is that universal prophet. He is Rahmatul lil Alameen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rabbul Alameen. He is the Lord of all of the worlds. And wherever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rabb, Rasulullah is Rahmah. And of course, he's born on Monday. He's born right as the time of Fajr is starting. This is also part of the announcement. What happens at Fajr? The darkness starts to disperse. The light is coming. All of these things that we know that occurred around his birth. And people say, oh, this is Da'if Hadith or that's Da'if Hadith, even though these are Hadiths that the Muhaddiseen have not challenged. At least the traditional Muhaddiseen have not challenged, meaning traditional, meaning those from the time of Rasulullah to 700 years after him. No one from amongst that time, amongst the Muhaddiseen, challenged these Hadiths in relation to the birth of Rasulullah. But even if I don't have that, I have the Quran. And we know, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatul qadr. But we also know, Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. This occurred when? 55 days before the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What happens? The army comes. Elephants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends ababil, the sparrows. And they didn't, and it's interesting. The stones or the baked clay that they threw, you look at physics from a physics standpoint. Even if I shoot a gun perpendicular, or rather straight up, 90 degrees straight angle. it goes up, and then of course friction slows it down, and then it starts to come back down. Right? Friction limits the speed at which it returns. If there was no friction, it should return at the same speed that it went up. But friction limits that to the extent that, like you shoot a 9mm bullet up and it comes down. Even a 9mm bullet, even at that angle, if it's real, if you're shooting at a different angle, yeah, you're going to go kill somebody. But if you shoot it at 90 degrees and it goes up, it stops and it comes straight back down. Because of friction limiting its speed, it's not going to be able to kill anybody. And they've done multiple tests on this. Those baked clay stones should not have done any damage to these warriors or these soldiers wearing armor. And yet we know that those small pebbles, you can call them, but they were baked clay, not only went through the soldiers, they also went through the elephants that they were sitting on. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not defend the Kaaba as Rabbi Kaaba. He did not defend the Kaaba as Alam tara kayfa fa'ala Rabbi Kaaba bi ashabil fil. Even though he is the Rabb of the Kaaba, he has allowed the Kaaba to be destroyed before that and even after that. We know that when Yazid attacked Mecca, 64 Hijri, and he had his army catapulting fire into Mecca, 3 of the walls of the Kaaba fell, the roof was burnt, the horns of the ram that Ibrahim al-Islam had sacrificed that were still inside of the Kaaba until that point were burnt. Even after that, there were other invading armies that came and attacked Mecca, that destroyed the Kaaba, stole the Hajr Aswad. The Hajr Aswad was gone for decades until finally it was brought back. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifies why he protected the Kaaba at that time. And he says to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did you not see what your Lord, the Lord of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did to the people of the elephant? This is why he protected the Kaaba at that time. Because if they had attacked and they had destroyed the Kaaba, they would have destroyed Mecca. They would have killed or enslaved the people of Mecca, which included the mother of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is why he defended the Kaaba then. This is also a miracle as to how he defended the Kaaba. And that miracle again is connected to the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you read the tafsir of Surah Wad-Duha, Fakhruddin Razi rahmatullah alayhi, in Tafsir al-Kabir, he mentions an incident which occurred when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was like 3 or 4 years old. We know that, shortly after his birth, he sent to be nursed by Bibi Halima radiallahu anha, Banu Sa'd. He would periodically come and visit his mother and his grandfather. One of those times when he comes to visit, there was this indecent party going on next to the house of his grandfather, Hazrat Abdul Muttalib radiallahu anhu. And so Bibi Halima is bringing him, and she pauses to look at something, and then she turns around and he's gone. We know that even at a younger age, he used to walk like a full-grown man. He didn't tumble like toddlers do. So he disappears. She's frantic. Where did he go? So she starts looking around and saying, asking the people, did you see this child? Did you see this child? And this old man asked her, he says, you know, who are you looking for? He says, I'm looking for the child, for the grandson of Abdul Muttalib. You know, I was bringing him and he disappeared. He said, what's his name? She says, Muhammad. He said, oh fine, I'll go and ask the idols to help us. So he goes to the idols that were around the Kaaba, and he says to talking to the idols, he says that, oh, you know, there's this child who's missing, so we need your help, and his name is Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as soon as he takes the name Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the idols that he's talking to fall. In the meantime, you know, this is the grandson of Abdul Muttalib, radiyallahu anhu, well respected and honored amongst Quraysh. So his grandson is missing, so you can imagine all of Quraysh are now looking for him. The interesting thing is that no one finds him except Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl is the one who finds him in this orchard on the outskirts of Mecca. And when he sees him, he sees this date tree leaning over its branches, giving him fruit. You know, Abu Jahl is not just Jahl, he's Abu Jahl, and for a reason. His actual name is Amr bin Hisham. You know, because he knew the truth, and he still denied it. This is the father of ignorance, not just ignorant. You know, someone who's ignorant, maybe you can teach them. Yeah. You know, when you get to that level, when you know the truth and you still deny it, that's not just ignorant, that's stupid. And you can't fix stupid. So he sees this. And then he rides up on his camel. And he places, you know, he gets off. You know, of course, when he arrives, the tree goes back to its position. He gets off and he picks up Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He places him on the camel and he gets on the camel in the front. So he has Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on his back. And the camel refuses to get up. Now he's hitting the camel, doing everything, refuses to get up. He gets off, nudges the camel immediately gets up. Pulls the camel down, he gets back on the camel. Again, the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the back, camel refuses to get up. Eventually he puts Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in front of him, and now the camel gets up. Everything recognizes Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except for men and jinn. All of creation recognizes who he is. And so now he rides back to Mecca. You know, of course, this was against his honor. This is Abu Jahl. You know, that this child should be sitting in front of him. But this is how he ends up having to ride back to Mecca with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Time's up. You know, there's a lot to be said. And you talk about any aspect of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And just to be able to give the background takes so much time that it, you know, you don't end up talking about or having time to talk about what you really want to talk about. So inshallah next week I'll pick up from here. There's certain things, you know, and we'll try not to give too much background and just kind of stick with what we need to talk about, inshallah. You know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill our hearts with his true love, with the true love of his beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those whom they love. May he give strength and victory to our brothers and sisters in Gaza and Palestine and wherever the Muslims are being oppressed over their oppressors. Those who have not made sunnah, go and make sunnah.